Dr. Tapan Kumar Dash. He is from Fibro Heal Wound Care Private Limited. He is a research development manager, research and development manager. He has obtained his PhD in 2016 in pharmaceutical drug delivery from IISER Bhubaneswar, and he worked as a national postdoctoral fellow in IISER Kolkata during 2017 to 2019, and he has research interest on targeted drug delivery to cancer, design of pharmaceutical formulations, drug repositioning, microenvironmental or immunological target for cancer. He has several publications in international journals of high repute, and he has a book chapter in his credit, and he has attended several conferences and workshops, and he has delivered many invited talks. And today he will be speaking on silk fibrin based composite material for biomedical applications and in the industrial perspective. I invite Dr. Tapan to deliver his talk.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Hope I am audible.
Yes.
So first of all, I would like to thank CGCRI committee and Dr. Jui for the invitation, and I'd like to thank Dr. Annapurna for the introduction. And so I will start my screen share now.
Yes, please.
Hope it is visible now.
It is visible.
So I represent Fibro Heal Wound Care Private Limited. We are a wound care company exploring the biomaterial application of silk proteins. Hope everyone knows of silk sarees, but use of silk proteins or silk as a biomaterial is quite novel to us, and we are pioneers in India to develop that. And to start with, let's introduce what are the protein components present in silk. So there is some background noise. Can you please? Yeah, it's better now. So all of you must have seen cocoons from where silk is been taken out for silk sarees. It basically, and the pupae comes out after certain times. Then we use this cocoon for our products. The fiber mainly comprises of two proteins, that is sericin and fibrin. Sericin is water soluble protein, which is kind of gum kind of protein, which binds the fibers together, whereas fibrin is insoluble protein, and it is sericin is mainly used for cosmetic and nutraceutical application because of its cosmetic nature and water retention properties. Fibrin is much explored in biomaterial field, tissue engineering, and wound care applications. So important thing to note here that we have several options of protein such as albumin, gelatin, collagen, but in case of all other proteins which are used in biomaterial so far, are in those cases this living being has to be killed before the protein is being obtained. But here, in case of silk protein, we don't have to kill the worm to obtain the fiber or protein. That's where we can put a green dot on it, not a red dot. Moving ahead with the story, in silk is being quite old, starting from 5000 to 2000 BC, but its pharmaceutical application started in late 60s, where it has been used as a suitable material for surgery. And in early 2000s, Derma Silk and Skin Dream Silks, there are two companies which explore the degummed silk or pure fibrin fibers for skin, for healthy skin and moisturized skin. In late 2010, there are a couple of other companies came up with different silk fibrin-based wound care products. We Fibroil established in 2017, and from then we are getting for different divisions of wound care applications. So I would like to have this discussion short as possible. So by the end of this presentation, we must be able to know why silk proteins and what are the advantages, where it is being mostly implicated, and what are the challenges we are facing in terms of academic research as well as industrial technical transfer, and what are the ways we have been able to successfully overcome these problems. And I will give a snapshot of how Fibroil is able to develop and process silk protein-based products for wound care application. To start with, we have silk protein. As I mentioned, it is two: silk fibrin and sericin. From now on, whenever I mention silk protein, it will mostly refer to fibrin, because we use fibrin mostly for wound care and biometal application. As I mentioned, it is obtained from non-living and it has no antigenic sequence. So there are some instances of foreign body reaction, but antigen antibody or promotion of immune response is not there. And it has high moisture retention capacity due to its unique sequences, those closely reachable to the natural moisturizing factor of skin. Then it is a well-proven biocompatible and biodegradable material. But when I say biocompatible, please note that it depends on the level of beta structures or level of silk fibrin present in the formulation. Then when I say biodegradability, its biodegradability varies from months to years. If a silk fiber is unprocessed, it may take several years. But in case of biometal application, it is reconstituted silk fiber or reconstituted silk fibrin. It degrades in months. And another advantage, of course, as I mentioned, it is a prolonged degradation which depends as per the processing features. And it has ampibly sequence. In next slide, I will give a few of the structural ideas of silk fibrin to say that it has repetitive 12 amphiphilic, hydrophobic and hydrophilic sequences that allows it to reassemble by itself. And quite interestingly, none of the other protein have this feature that it is thermoresistance. It can withstand up to 150 to 200 degree Celsius temperature. Now, these are the important part to be employed as a biomaterial. Specific for tissue engineering, it has certain feature which is of high tensile strength. It has oxygen permeability, and it has water permeability as well. And as I mentioned, it has slow biodegradability. The important feature for a material to be tissue engineered, it has high flexibility. When I say flexibility, it is for raw or unreconstituted silk fibrin fibers. But in case of reconstituted, the scenario changes. And the important feature is it's open to functional modification because of several amino acids or reactive amino acids present. The most abundant amino acids are glycine and serine. It has a repeated sequence of GA, GA, GS. So this serine part is very open to modification. And unique feature of this fibrin or silk protein is that the flexibility with the sterilization methods. In case of other proteinaceous materials, there are limited ways we can sterilize, but in case of silk fibrin, it can be sterilization can be achieved by heat. As I mentioned, it is thermostable and irradiation, ethylene oxide, as well as plasma sterilization. Now, moving ahead, the structure part of silk protein. This is a representative example of silk fiber, which is consist of two proteins, that is fibrin, and it has a sericin coating which is outside. Fibrin constitute about 70% of total silk fiber, and sericin constitute about 20 to 30%. And each of these fibers comes with constitute of multiple fibrils. These fibrils is a single thread fibers which is brought or combined with gummy sericin coating. And this individual fibril consists of multiple fibrin or self-fibrin protein, which is combined by what you call beta sheets, or in huge sense it is beta stacks. What is meant by, as I mentioned, it is GAGA repeats, which is being formulated into beta stacks. Beta stacks are nothing but there are, as I mentioned here, there are multiple fibrin proteins in a single fibril. The thing happens here is that two of these fibrin protein can come together to form a cross-linked beta stack, as it displayed in the figure. Like this is one protein fiber, if I protein long chain, there is another protein long chain. The beta stacks are intermolecular, not intramolecular. So that makes it difficult to process, and its dissolution become much more difficult. And due to self-assembly, its behavior changes upon storage. I mean, after reconstruction, its behavior changes upon storage, as well as in response to different environmental conditions such as pH, temperature, ionic strength, you name it, it has impact on it. So these are the molecular level. So what are the academic difficulties? I would like to share here few of the questions from our net. What are the academic difficulties they are facing while handling self-fibrin? First of all, it is how to dissolve it. There are several literature methods. Most of adopted in is lithium bromide, and there is another one is calcium chloride. In case of lithium bromide, as the question said, what are the self-fibrin dissolution technique? Often we get insoluble residues. Why this insoluble residues? Nobody can answer that. And second question is about its gelling. After being reconstituted in lithium bromide, and it is desalted to get self-fibrin. During the process of desalting, it gels spontaneously. How to control that is a big question or big problem in while handling self-fibrin. The third most important problem is molecular weight. Self-fibrin as such, it is molecular weight of about 350 kilodaltons, which comprise of heavy chain and light chain. Heavy chain is about 326 and light chain is about 25, which is connected through disulfide bonds. But however, during the processing, we often do not get the intact fibrin. We get often degraded fibrin. That's the main disadvantages in case of silk processing. Again, it varies based on its reconstitution, whether it is dissolved in lithium bromide or calcium chloride. In case of calcium chloride method, the molecular weight deviation or molecular variation is much higher. Now moving ahead, there is another set of questions comes, why foaming occurs during in the fibrin solution. It is mostly due to its hydrophilic and hydrophobic repetitive sequences, which mostly act as a surfactant. Then the final test set of final question, which is very relevant to industry, may not be for academia, is how to detect sericin, traces of sericin if present in the fibrin. So to go ahead, it has two proteins. The sericin is taken off by various methods, which I will discuss, and residue is fibrin. But we don't have specific method that how much sericin is left behind. So that quality control parameter is not well established to get it through regulatory, and it is a open questions across the scientific community to how to get detect specifically sericin and fibrin. Now moving ahead, as I mentioned, there are four basic questions: dissolution of fibrin, then what is the control of molecular weight, how to detect fibrin, and why there is elation. I will give some practical examples of molecular weight variation. So as I said, fibrin is separated from sericin, or fibrin is extracted from the cell protein by these processes, that is by autoclaving or short-term alkaline boiling. Alkaline here is usually sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate, and intensive alkaline boiling, it is for longer duration of time, or ultrasonic probe. All these methods are used to take out sericin from fibrin to get pure fibrin for further applications. As you can see, in all cases, D1, D2, D3, D4, none of the cases we are getting a single band of silk fibrin which is of 320 kDa. It often comes as a smear because it's degraded during the period of its processing. So during degumming or during the process of taking out sericin from fibrin, this is the consequence, and this is the most important challenge has to be faced before while going for designing a product. And moving ahead, the gelation. So as I said, the second question and most posted question is gelation. Gelation occurs due to high amount of beta acids. So consider an example where we have taken out sericin from fibrin and you have dissolved it in lithium bromide. Then when you take off lithium bromide either by dialysis or by ultrafiltration, there is a certain amount of shear temperature, ionic strength change, those are happening, including the pH change. So those all contribute to its reassembly as a to reproduce beta acids in the silk fibrin solution. That changes its structure, ultimately it jellify in the process. So that how to prevent that, we have a very limited answer to that. Here I am putting an instance where researchers have studied what are the effect of different metal ions on transition from silk 1 to silk 2. That is nothing but beta structure formation. If silk 1, it is mostly random coils. If silk 2, it is enriched with beta structures. Silk 2 structure often contribute to the gelling of fibrin, whereas silk 1 is remains as such. So those are few mostly anions which so with those like cations which either negative, which have 2 charge or 1 charge or 3 charge, which contribute to its gelation, where there are other ions which is sodium plus and ferric and manganese, those don't contribute to this transition. What are the other factors those contributes? As I said earlier, this is the transition from silk 1 to silk 2 or gelation of silk fibrin is derived by changes in temperature, pH, organic solvent, surfactant, shear force, you name it, it will have an impact on its behavior. That's where to control its processing conditions is very tedious, and today to a academician it is much easier to control in a smaller scale, but for industrial scales, technology transfer really have larger amount of challenges. Now moving ahead, what are the these are the challenges, but what are the experimental demonstrations by academic researchers? So it has been demonstrated in multiple forms of fiber bonding, fiber mesh, self-assembly to produce fibrin gels, to give a thin film by lamination, phase separation to produce micro and nanoparticles, freeze drying to produce particles and scaffolds, particular etching again to produce scaffolds and particular for tissue support, and gas forming again for foam or scaffolds, solvent casting again it is for films as well as scaffolds, electrospinning for fibers, and these are the advanced techniques where we can modulate our silk fibrin to get a particular definite structure, or the printing is designed as per a requirement. Important thing here is to note that in case of fiber and fiber mesh, fiber bonding and fiber mesh, we use unreconstructed silk fibrin, whereas in other cases we use reconstructed silk fibrin. Using this technique, researchers has been successfully developed microparticle seeds. So there are various formulations starting from as mentioned in the figure, and application is also wide range for tissue support, tissue engineering, drug delivery, implantable devices. So these are the various application system developed for various implications by researchers. Now coming to what are the industrial difficulties we face while adopting this formulation in an industrial scale. So I'll already discuss a few of the process of self-assembly. It is driven by multiple factors. Can it be controlled? So what about molecular weight, temperature, shear force, pH? It is modulated by all. So self-assembly has to be controlled to get a uniformity from batch to batch production, as well as to control the processing parameter to get a product with uniform or with a specification of our desired product. Now moving at membrane laminations. So self-fibrine forms a membrane, but if it is rich in beta structures, it gives a fragile membrane. It is not flexible as mentioned in the literature. Now phase separation, yes, of course, the greatest medium of phase separation brought about by salts, pH, and organic solvent. But during the phase separation, the particle size uniformity is very high, because the particle size uniformity is because of the beta structures and its molecular weight. We know that we have, I have said previously that molecular weight control is a real challenge, which also contribute to its self-aggregation in uniform way. Coming to freeze drying, we have during the process of freeze drying, it reassures crystallinity that changes its resolubilization, and as well as its structure becomes more fragile. So again, similar kind of problems are there with particular leaching while we consider industrial production at industrial cell. So what is the solution to that? Solution we found is silk-fibrin based composite material. In fact, to say frankly, 90% of these fabrication techniques are based on composites, not pure silk-fibrin. Let's see one or two examples. I'll not take much time. Let's see one or two examples how composites are helping silk-fibrin to get much better properties. So here an example where the figure A shows only silk-fibrin, which is kind of laminated. After freeze, this is the picture after freeze drying, where we can see that there are laminated sheet kind of structures, which is not desirable for any kind of scaffolds. When it is mixed with PEG at different ratios, we can see that the pore structure is becoming more uniform in case of C, and C, which is enlarged in D. So this is an example how the physical or required attributes can be modified by producing silk-fibrin composite rather than its alone. Similar phenomenon has been also reported when it is mixed with another protein, gelatin. In case of A, it is mostly seeds or stat seeds, whereas in case of D, where we have about 1.28% gelatin, it is very nice for organized porous structure, which is well desired for cellular scaffold for tissue regeneration, as well as its scaffolding properties in tissue support. Now another property of silk-fibrin, which I say this is brittle when it is formulated into a film. As you can see in the figure, that silk-fibrin alone, which is bold lined, it has very low tensile strength, and its strain is becoming very very high in low tensile strength. However, when it is modified with graphene oxide, and in fact it is modified graphene oxide in a composite film, the tensile strength increases very much with low tensile strength. So these are few examples how we can modify silk-fibrin by for making it to a composite with different materials. Silk-fibrin based composites have been demonstrated in various polymers, including gelatin, albumin, chitosan. There are lots of polymers which are including synthetic polymers such as polycaprolactone, PLGA, polylactic acid. So there are various level of composites have been developed for successful application in drug delivery and basically biomaterial applications. Now coming to our product trends, we have been able to successfully develop about 8 products from silk-fibrin and silk-based composites. We have both antimicrobial as well as normal range. As you can see, this AG stands for nanosilver or silver, which is acting as an antimicrobial. these lower range of products are, or defibril AG range of products are indicated for infected wounds, and defibril range of products are indicated for clean and sterile wounds. Here, I would cite an example how our products are being designed. So these are two of our products I have shown, that is defibril AG, defibril AG mesh and defibril AG. So defibril AG mesh is a porous structure which allows the wound exudates or excess liquid from the wound surface to drain out easily, so that it will not have much water retention and it complicate the wound. Defibril AG is used for low exudating wounds, but both of the films are indicated in infected ones. Now, considering the layered structure, each our formulation is composed of tri-layered structure, which has silk fibrin composite layer along with nanosilver, which is really active layer, and we have an activated matrix which hold the active layer, and we have a hydrophobic backing which allows moisture to penetrate into the wound, but it will not allow water to penetrate. So these are the design, and this is an example of how we can incorporate a silk fibrin composite into a product. And I think we are first in India to develop such a product where using a silk fibrin composite and taking it to a commercial scale. And I would appreciate if I if I can answer any questions if audiences have. Thank you for your patience and time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tapan, with very informative and illuminating lecture. If anyone has any questions, please. It is really very interesting.
Yeah, thanks.
Any questions, please?
Dr. Tapan, thank you for excellent talk.
Thanks.
And yes, I have a couple of questions, very interesting, because wound healing is one of the hot topics of research due to the variety of wounds people have normally. And is it, I mean, this fibroin kind of material, this composite, is it applicable for diabetic wounds? What
Yes, there
exact
are
category of wound what you are applying in?
So we are basically aiming at complicated and difficult to heal wounds, but because wound healing takes care by itself. So where wound healing doesn't take care by itself, by where it is infected or difficult to heal, we want to place our product in for those kind of type of wounds. So, suppose it may be diabetic ulcer, it may be pressure ulcer, it may be complicated traumatic wound, or it may be rejection kind of wounds. To answer your question, yes, the silk fibrin has been demonstrated in diabetic foot ulcers, as well as it has been. There are several studies says that oral intake of silk fibrin is effective as in protein supplement for diabetic patients.
Okay.
So these are the two areas where silk fibrin can be explored for diabetic patients.
Because what I've seen is you are incorporating silver into it, and now you must be knowing that silver is nano silver is toxic to our body as well. It has got a threshold concentration beyond which it may be toxic, because it's going into the circulation, no? Via the wound, it is going into the circulation.
Yes.
So what do you think about it? Because you are the type of dressing what you have designed is, it is wound cover or something, pouch kind of thing. What I can see.
No, it is not a pouch. It is a sheet basically.
It is a sheet. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it has to be put on the wound, and we have to give a secondary dressing. To answer your question, yes, we have validated that the concentration is well maintained. And if you go to the commercial perspective, there are about, if go to antimicrobial dressings, of 70% of the antimicrobial dressings are based on silver. So it is well explored in the clinical and well accepted in the doctors community.
No, I know that, but have you calculated the amount what you're incorporating, it is validated.
Yes, it is validated per square centimeter. We should have this much, and we take a batch to batch quality control testing for that.
Okay. Thank you so much for your excellent talk. It is very informative, and we'll have a snap again, just like other talks we are having. So,
Dr. Tapan, is it in the market already? The product
yes,
is.
these 8 products which I have shown are in the market.
Okay, very nice, and I congratulate on my personal behalf. It is very nice, and
actually he is from one industry. This Fibrohil is an industry. It is in Gujarat, isn't it?
No, it is in Bangalore.
In Bangalore. Okay, yeah.
It is in Bangalore.
He's an R&D manager, yes, from that industry.
I again on behalf of the organizers and on my own behalf.
Yeah, thanks.